Hey guys, Halloween has come and gone, which means that it's time to focus on the next big holiday. No, I meant Thanksgiving. All throughout this month, I'm going to be talking about what it is that I'm thankful for, starting with my girlfriend, Raven Fox. I like to think that my show is already pretty good, but ever since Raven and I got together and she started being a part of the team, I've really improved. She helps me with writing and shooting my reviews, she offers suggestions on plot points, she helps with the title cards. She does so much for me that I can't thank her enough for it. And on top of everything that she does for my show, she's also really good at hugging. And that is why we are going to be looking at the Hugga Bunch comics. Yes, my special lady loves the Hugga Bunch. And she loves seeing me in pain, so what better way to demonstrate my thanks than to put myself through the cuddly, squishy, adorable ringer that is the Hugga Bunch miniseries. The cover of issue 1 features a pirate named Captain Snake, and how he's gonna get licked by the Hugga Bunch. Good lord, the must-be-a-Bob Show graphic is gonna get winded when all this is over. It's also worth noting that these comics were published by Star Comics, and astonishingly, we still have yet to see any kind of crossover with this and the rest of the Marvel Universe.
I'm Huggins, and I'm the best at what I do, bub!
Our comic opens on a bright, wonderful, happy day with all the Hugga monsters being all cute and happy and blech.
Huggins wants to play Spin the Sign. The small motherless child who lives with me and is named after an obscene gesture wants to play a makeout game.
They spin the sign that welcomes newcomers to Huggaland, implying that there are other communities in this world outside of Huggaland, and that makes it change so that it now reads, Road to Riches. Without questioning how this works, the Huggas go off to follow the sign, which hopefully leads them off of a cliff or something. But Huggins gets distracted by a glowing beam of sunlight, signaling that someone is in need of feeling better. Yeah, remember how in the Hugga Bunch movie they would come into people's bedrooms through their mirrors? Apparently this is what it looks like on their end. And they only show up whenever somebody is feeling down and they need a hug. Well, I hope you don't mind answering the countless millions of sunbeams that pop up from all over the world, Huggas. We meet a young boy named Homer, who looks like Alfalfa from the Little Rascals, and he's unhappy about how his dad keeps moving him and his family across the country for his job. Huggins comes through the mirror to cheer him up, and just like in the movie, seeing this inhuman abomination appearing before him barely raises an eyebrow. She takes him into Huggaland, where, again, he seems more mildly bemused than shocked and horrified upon crossing dimensions. Hey, look at that! I just broke all known laws of physics and wound up in some spatially transcendent alien world. Huh. Huggins takes Homer to meet her friends down the road to riches, which Homer is rather happy about. Not because of the prospect of meeting some new friends, but because if he can snag some of the aforementioned riches, he can give it to his dad so he can then buy his company and not have to move anymore. Apparently money can buy you happiness. Well done, Hugga Bunch! It isn't long before Homer is abducted by that Captain Snake guy from the cover, and he's taken aboard what looks like the Wicked Wench from the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Also, Huggaland is now within walking distance from the ocean. I don't remember that from the movie. Okay, get to work! Scrub the decks! Mend the sails! Tighten the knots!
Batten down the hatches! I did batten them down! We'll batten them down again! We'll teach those hatches!
It turns out that Captain Snake has abducted the other Huggas, who are all scrubbing down the decks, happy as can be. Yeah, there's something to be said about making the best out of a bad situation, but you've been shanghaied by pirates and are being forced into slave labor! Stop making lemons into lemonade and maybe use them to squirt lemon juice into pirates' eyes or something!
Captain Snake, is this a good knot?
Not funny! Piracy is serious business!
'Cause when you're a professional pirate, that's what the job's about.
They spot the HMS Princess on the horizon.
HMS? There's a Britain in Huggaland now?
And they all catch up to the ship so they can board it.
Continued in this issue.
You know, it's dumb enough when comics have a to be continued, only to then carry on with the story in the same issue, but at least the different parts were separated by a couple of ads. What's the point of having to be continued when the story continues on the very next page? Anyway, Homer decides that he isn't going to be a part of this crew, and he protects Princess, who looks like Wendy the Good Little Witch. Why do I know who Wendy the Good Little Witch is? But she doesn't need any protecting, since apparently she was the fencing champion at her school. And the only reason she didn't immediately bust out the sword to protect herself is because... shut up. She fights off the pirates, and she and Homer now have a chance to talk. He tells her about how his dad is constantly moving his family around, and she talks about how her father will one day set her up with a prince so that she could be the queen.
My father is like your father. He must do what he has to do.
Captain Snake grabs Princess when she isn't looking, and for dramatic purposes, she has lost her sword-fighting skills. It looks like they're going to fall into the ocean when their line snaps, but they're saved by soft stuff, a giant quilted blue whale. The other pirates, not being the brightest stars a ship can sail by, all jump in the water to get their captain, and Homer gets Princess back on board. And then someone releases the Kraken. This is a weird remake of The Legend of the Titanic. The octopus throws the pirates back onto their ship instead of eating them. Then the sunbeam thing shows up because, and Homer goes back home. His mom is surprised by his change of attitude, and he explains that
has to do what he has to do, just like any king.
Oh, really? His dad moves his family all over the country because he just has to do it, huh? Funny. I thought it was because he did it on a random whim or something. So he goes off to school with his newly found optimism when the comic decides to blur the lines between fantasy and reality as he meets Princess back in his world. She introduces herself as Diana, and they walk to school together. Tragically, they would both die in a horrible car crash before they made it to school. Issue 2 apparently features Stormilla the Snow Queen from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer the movie, who has grown too big for her castle. We find the Huggas playing and bouncing around on... the spring-loaded ground, and Hugsy bounces so high that he can see the icy kingdom above the clouds. If this turns into a Care Bears crossover, I'm out. Now that the icy kingdom has been established, another golden sunbeam shows up at random and takes Huggins to... an elementary school locker room. I don't know how common locker rooms in elementary schools actually are. I know that the one that I went to didn't have those. But thank you, comic, for showing us that the Huggas don't only have access to bedroom mirrors, but they can apparently peep at little girls changing into their clothes en masse. This soft, squishy children's toy never ceases to amaze me and how creepy it is. Anyway, Huggins overhears some girls talking about another girl named Susan, who was apparently so serious that she wouldn't be any fun if they invited her to their party. She abducts Susan and takes her back to Huggaland to show her a good time. And oh my god, I just squicked myself out! Ugh, she has some fun with the Huggas, but it isn't long before Susan says that she should be getting home. Huggins activates their sunbeam transporter, but multimodal reflection sorting reprograms it to take them not back to Susan's locker, but to the icy kingdom.
Oh, look at you! You're frozen!
Ah, meaning that he's teaching questionable life lessons and is always singing an ungodly earworm that just won't leave me alone! Oh no, of course not. He's just in a giant ice cube. I honestly hope that he gets in an argument with someone later in the comic, just so he can legitimately shout in his defense,
I was frozen today!
Susan chips the boy out of his icy prison with a pickaxe that's just laying around, and of course he's still perfectly alive. Frostbite, hypothermia, and asphyxiation are just mild inconveniences, I guess. He explains that the Ice Queen froze him with her ice powers for some reason, and he takes them to his little cottage to get them some warmer clothing. We get a big exposition dump about how the Ice Queen is trying to raise her daughter to be her successor, making Huggins come to this leap of logic.
She sounds like Susan's aunt!
Huggins, they're not similar at all. I'm no princess.
What does your aunt want you to be when you grow up?
I guess she wants me to be president of her company.
Well,
I would say that you pulled that assumption right out of your cute, fluffy ass. When did she ever say that's what her aunt wanted her to be? Susan, Huggins, and Chipper, yes, that's the frozen kid's name, go off to free the Ice Princess for some reason, but the Ice Palace is enchanted so that it's indestructible. The Ice Queen zaps Huggins into an ice cube, but all it takes to free her is Susan giving her a hug. Was hugging invented by the Green Lantern Corps? All you have to do is hug something and it'll magically do whatever you imagine it to? The Ice Queen then freezes Huggins, Susan, and Chipper, leaving only Huggins' little fetus friend Huggaby to bounce away to get the other Huggas. Was there any reason why Huggaby couldn't simply hug all of them to unfreeze them? Why are the other Huggas in the Icy Kingdom? Huggins is only here because she was teleported by one of those sunbeam thingies. Huggaby tells them about what's going on through what I can only assume is some kind of advanced form of pantomime. Then they all run around the Ice Palace while holding hands, and this somehow melts it and frees the princess. So, brute force with a pickaxe does nothing, but just running around it destroys it. I'm surprised that they didn't think to just ask it to get up and walk away. It's just as plausible. Once freed, the Ice Princess instantly grows up into a queen, and flowers are growing at her feet. Kinda inconsistent with the whole ice and snow thing, isn't it? She scolds her aunt for keeping the Icy Kingdom icy so that nothing can grow, which is more than a little head-scratching, since I'm pretty sure this kingdom is up in the clouds. How much growing do you expect to actually do up there? So the new queen restores the balance of nature, or whatever. Huggins sends Susan home, and her Aunt Penny is waiting for her at school, where she says that she thinks she's been too strict with her little niece, and she needs to be more social and have some fun. This instantly makes everyone in the school want to be her friend, and Susan has learned absolutely nothing from this little adventure. Her own problems of nobody liking her because she's too serious just kinda resolve themselves.
Nice job, Huggas. You've abducted 2 children and brought them into your world to teach them some kind of life lessons, and you've ended up teaching them absolutely nothing.
Issue 3 features this guy. He looks exactly like Herbert from Family Guy, and his name is Mr. Grabby. Mr. Grabby! Oh my god, this comic is going to go into a dark place from which there is no going back. Actually, now that I think about it, this is kind of a cool concept. Every good superhero has to have a villain that's the exact opposite of him, right? Or maybe a villain that's a dark reflection of the hero and everything he stands for? Here we have a group of characters who want to spread the gospel of hugging, so what better foil for them than someone who is also a fan of hugging, but wants to turn it into something vile and sinister.
Because even pedophiles need love too.
Don't get any ideas, Jimmy Screamer Claus, it was only a joke. Anyway, our comic opens with Hugsy being bored of laughing and playing all day. Maybe he's becoming aware of the hollow lie that he lives. He hears some sobbing coming from a sunbeam, and he figures that the best way to break up the monotony is to do the exact same damn thing they do every time they hear sadness coming from a sunbeam, and he goes into it. A little girl named Bonnie has apparently lost her dog, Rascal, and her dad blames her for losing Rascal since she spends too much time thinking of herself. Thanks for being sympathetic, asshole. Hugsy takes Bonnie into Huggaland to cheer her up, but all the other Huggas are in hiding. They show themselves, and Huggins reveals that Mr. Grabby came by, and while his MO is usually grabbing unloved pets so that he can bask in their suffering, this time he made off with Hugsy's little fetus friend, Tuggins.
Mr. Grabby. Tuggins. Cool Cat, do you have any insight on this?
Exquisite!
Thank you.
They all band together to get Tuggins back, and even Bonnie offers her Girl Scout tracking skills. Back in his evil underground lair, Mr. Grabby is reveling in the collective sadness of his prisoners.
You've all been deserted by your beloved masters. You're all unloved, and I love it, because so am I.
You know, Grabby, I do enjoy a little depth and pathos to my villains, and succumbing to a life of crime because you never knew love and friendship is pretty terrible and all, but these are pets that you're stealing. Did it never occur to you to get a pet for yourself? I have no sympathy for stupid people. Hang on, if stealing pets is his thing, and he's moved on to stealing Huglets, are the Huglets the pets of the Huggas? His little sidekick Filch announces that the Hugga Bunch are on their way, and he sets out to capture the rest of the Huglets, which he does without any kind of opposition whatsoever. Way to go, Huggas! Bunny tells them not to lose hope, then they all give themselves a big group hug, which is apparently one of the most powerful forces anywhere, and it accomplishes absolutely nothing. They follow Bonnie as she uses her super cool, awesome tracking skills, and it isn't long before they come across Castle Grabby Skull. Seriously, they needed to track Mr. Grabby to this place? The only thing missing from this image is a big neon sign that says, Mr. Grabby's, walk-ins welcome. They go inside the cave and eventually get lost. Huggins suggests that they use their homing device to find the Huglets.
We Huggas use this to find someone we love. Humans can use it too. Concentrate, Huggas. We're going to follow our hearts. Giglet, I found her. I know where Huggabug is. Let's go get them.
So not content with simply being a cheap Care Bears knockoff, the Huggas are Jedis too? Actually, now that I think about it, that might explain Darth Vader's heel turn at the end. They finally get to where Tuggins and the other pets are being held, and now it's time to pull another random and unexplained power out of the Huggas' asses. It would appear that simply being within proximity of someone that you love is enough to make stone prison bars dissolve away. I'd say you can't make up something that stupid, although apparently somebody did. But then Mr. Grabby shows up again and somehow makes another cage form around the Huggas. One would think that the cage would just dissolve within the presence of the Huggas' collective love, but do you really expect something like logic to come into play here? So what does save them? While their combined love isn't enough to open the cage itself, the love of the Huglets by themselves is enough to open a series of sunbeams that stretches across the cosmos so that every one of the pet's owners can come through and save them. And yeah, we see what are clearly alien creatures coming through the sunbeams, meaning that Mr. Grabby has somehow developed transstellar space travel technology which he only uses for stealing pets. Only in a comic like this can a villain be a complete genius and a complete moron too.
Now I don't even have misery to keep me company. I'm alone and friendless, just as I was as a child.
But then Filch declares that he's Grabby's friend, and that's enough to make him change his ways. Blah blah blah, happy endings all around. They get Bonnie back to her world where she only now decides to put her amazing tracker skills to work, and she finds her dog within seconds. Good to know that the Huggas can inspire children to do the painfully obvious. Issue 4's cover features some kind of sentient cloud raining all over some kid's parade, and the Huggas are perfectly fine with how happy he clearly is. I guess being unhappy doesn't register with them if you're overweight. The story begins with the Huggas down at the old swimming hole when they hear some chomping noises coming from one of the sunbeams. My god, the sunbeams have a taste for human flesh! Everyone head for the hills! Actually, the munching sounds are coming from this kid named Jackie, who eats heavily to cope with his parents always fighting. And one of their major topics of debate is how much their son eats. They take Jackie into Huggaland, and the first thing he does is lie down to get some rest. He spots a little storm cloud in the sky, and the Huggas think that something must be wrong with it, so they follow the cloud to get to the bottom of things. Because I guess stormy weather just doesn't exist in Huggaland, so there must be more to this storm cloud than meets the eye. I guess Huggaland must be somewhere in Southern California. The slightest change in the weather, and everyone loses their minds! They follow the cloud up the side of Thunder Rise Mountain, which is the home of Papa Stormbringer, controller of winds and rains. They catch up to the cloud, who introduces himself as Howie, and he explains that he's off to see Papa Stormbringer because he's angry for teaching him how to rain, and he doesn't like making things dark and gloomy. How dare Stormbringer teach a cloud to do the one thing that clouds exist to do? My god, he's worse than Hugga Hitler! They eventually get to Stormbringer at the top of the mountain, and Howie demands that they cut down on their raining for Mother Nature's sake. Yeah, Mother Nature is a real entity in this universe, and Howie thinks that his raining is harshing her mothery buzz, I guess. Stormbringer, well, brings a storm in reaction to Howie's insolence, and what protects the Huggas from the torrential rains? What do you think? Of course they just hug each other, and that's enough to protect them from the rain. If this comic wasn't made in 1986, I'd swear I'm reading something straight out of the Silver Age. Mother Nature herself shows up and tells Stormbringer to cut the waterworks, which he's happy to do since they're old friends. She explains to Howie that Stormbringer is actually doing nothing wrong whatsoever, and that the beauty of nature that she provides couldn't possibly be without the rain that he provides. And if you're wondering why Stormbringer couldn't explain this himself, just slam your head into a wall and it'll make sense eventually. Now that that non-issue is dealt with, they go back to Huggaland and Jackie goes back home, and he somehow gets his parents to stop fighting because he acknowledges that they can still love each other in spite of their differences. Not sure how that fixes the issue of his dad not spending enough time with him, but whatever, happy ending! And for those who haven't been keeping score at home, we're now 4 issues in, and so far the Huggas have done nothing to help the children like they're supposed to. Let's give a big hand for the Convenience Fairy, ladies and gentlemen!
Hooray!
Issue 5 begins with one of the Huggas running late for her hugging class. So what exactly is there to learn about hugging? I'm pretty sure at this point these things could just use hugging to stop the zombie apocalypse if they wanted. And before Huggins can get too upset by her running late, because on top of being the self-appointed Grand Empress of the Huggas, she's apparently their Secretary of Education too, another sunbeam shows up making a loud rumbling noise. It's making this noise because someone on the other side is unhappy. Just like every other sunbeam we've seen so far. This doesn't explain anything. We see a couple of what looks like 12-year-old kids, and the boy, named Alan, is unhappy by the fact that he doesn't have any money. His girlfriend Doris walks out on him for being a whiny little tool, and they take him to Huggaland because what the hell else are they supposed to do? Alan is unimpressed by the land of quilting, so they take him to the magic area, as opposed to the rest of Huggaland, which is decidedly unmagical. And while he is more impressed by it, he can't really believe what he's seeing. He kicks a tree stump to see if it's real, which wakes up this pudgy purple bird living inside of it, simply called the Grouse. And because it's a pissed-off little bird, there is only one voice that I can supply to it.
Oh, my back is killing me! I must have slept like a log. No, wait, I slept in a log. What are you smiling at?
And I'm sorry, Raven, I know that you hate how he sounds, but just look at this guy! He's Iago! How do I not use that voice? The grouse trudges through the forest, and through the sheer power of complaining about everything he sees, he reverses the nature of every critter he comes across. He makes chipmunks not want to collect acorns, he makes a rabbit want to take a nice, leisurely stroll instead of sprinting at top speed, he makes a couple of fish want to hang out on dry land. Ooh, he's gonna make the Hugga-Bunch start World War III! Huggins begins to worry about the possibility of the grouse being awakened by their mucking about in the magic area, and her fears are confirmed upon seeing how everyone is acting differently. After following the trail of backwards behavior, they eventually track the grouse down to the beach, where he's trying to stop the ocean from beating up against the shore.
You guys have been together that long? Are you bored with one another? I mean, even the Beatles split up. I somehow know who the Beatles are despite being asleep in a tree trunk for thousands of years.
The grouse almost convinces the Huggas that they shouldn't care about how the sea separating from the shore will tear Huggaland apart somehow, but through the sheer force of will, Huggins gets everyone else to brush it off and get to hugging again. If this had been published by DC Comics instead of Marvel, I'd expect Huggins to turn into a Green Lantern by this point.
Now I'm ready for you, Mr. Grouse. I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna hurt you. Really, really bad.
So she hugs the grouse, and this is enough to make him stop complaining about everything. Obvious lesson is obvious, and Alan goes home to appreciate what he has. Hey, what do you know? The Huggas actually did something to help with the kids' problems.
What a wild idea!
The cover of issue 6 shows everything in Huggaland disappearing by the half, and with the way that Hugsy is drawn showing us only his profile, this actually makes for some pretty damn unnerving imagery.
Hugsy, something is taking away half of Huggaland.
Oh, I know, Huggins. I know. Our story opens with the Huggas doing a little spring cleaning when a sunbeam shows up. Who saw that one coming? And they learn of a Little League baseball player named Danny who can't join the game until he looks absolutely perfect. I didn't know that baseball dugouts had dressing rooms, but whatever. The Huggas take him into Huggaland, where they do the regular shtick of marveling at all its patchwork glory, but patches of said patchwork glory have started turning into nothing but dirt. Danny offers his services to help find out who's been doing this, since he's a fan of detective books and TV shows, so of course he's an expert, and we soon learn who has been ruining Huggaland. This little Dobby-looking guy dressed up like the Lucky Charms leprechaun. Apparently, he's stealing big chunks of Huggaland in his magic bag. Maybe he's got a TARDIS in there or something. Doctor Who and Harry Potter crossover. Somebody at the BBC make that happen! He's doing this because, and the Huggas start asking everything in Huggaland if they've seen anything unusual. This babbling brook mentions a little man carrying a black bag, and somehow Danny imagines exactly what Not Dobby looks like. Actually, is he thinking about what he looks like twice? Kinda hard to imagine that both he and one of the Huggas would imagine the exact same thing, but then why would there be two thought bubble trails leading to his head? Now that they have a lead, Danny declares that
This is the time for action, so let's move before it's too late.
Okay. This has officially turned into a never-ending story comic.
So, yeah, this is pretty terrifying. All of Huggaland is gone, but Danny thinks that this is actually a good thing. He figures that since Not Dobby has taken the rest of Huggaland, it won't be long until he comes back for this little patch of nothing. And what are you supposed to do when he does show up? He's just gonna suck you into his little bag too. For that matter, where would he come here from? Is he just in some kind of limbo dimension? Eventually he does come by, and the Huggas fail at keeping him from taking the last bit of Huggaland. So, comic over? Please? But all is not lost. Huggins gives a big, soul-stirring speech about how the magic of Huggaland can never be stolen, or something. Then they all hug, and the bag just spits out all of Huggaland, making the same sound effect that the rest of the comic does. Blow. And as it happens, the bag has completely lost its magic. Don't worry, I'm sure the Suck-a-Bunch might be able to replenish it. Alright, we did it! We got Huggaland back! Sure, Danny, you can do anything when you work together. Actually, looking back, this super hug only seemed to work once Danny joined their little hug orgy. If the idea is to teach him something about teamwork and not being all about himself, how is he supposed to learn that when it was clearly his involvement that turned the tide in this conflict? But yeah, he goes back, he learns to be part of a team somehow, and his incredible team spirit wins the game. Which probably would have happened anyway, since his overinflated sense of confidence and self-worth would be all that he needs to play his best.
And so that was the Hugga-Bunch miniseries, and I have no idea why it even exists.
Outside of the Autobots from Bayformers and Kate from the Alpha and Omega sequels, I don't think I've ever seen main characters who are this useless to the story. The Huggas bring some kids into their world, where they might learn some kind of lesson pertaining to whatever personal problems they're having at home, but if they do, it's not by anything that the Huggas do. They're just kind of there, and they don't contribute anything to the story aside from just opening the door for the kids to be kidnapped through. Oh yeah, they don't even offer the kids some kind of invitation into Huggaland, they just up and take them, not unlike one of their antagonists. Because love and affection is perfectly alright when it's forced, you know. Although, to be fair, Issue 4 does teach us that no matter what our differences, we can still love each other. And Raven has been giving me some of the dirtiest of looks as I've been joking about something that she loves, which I don't, but it's okay because I know in the end, we're still gonna love each other.
But luckily for me, I know something that's immune to the almighty power of hugging. You just won't take it off. What are you gonna do, right? See you later.
I was born to make you happy. I think you're just my style. Everywhere I go, telling everyone I know, baby, I love to see you smile. Don't wanna take a trip to China. Don't wanna sail up the Nile. Don't wanna get too far from where you are, 'cause I love to see you smile. In the summer, in the springtime, winter or fall, the only place I wanna be is where I can see my Raven smiling at me. In a world that's full of trouble, you make it all worthwhile. What would I do if I didn't have you? Baby, I love to see you smile. I love to see you smile.